Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming this evening. I know a lot of you have travelled a long way. We really appreciate you coming to meet Sisters of the Valley. My name's Brother Matt. I've been involved with Sisters of the Valley since 2016 when I discovered them online. First of all, we're going to start with the trailer to their movie, which is due out next year, Breaking Habits.
Sisters of the Valley.
Sisters of the Valley.
They are in the business of helping people in pain.
The number one cash crop in California has been marijuana. It has made certain growers wealthy beyond their wildest imaginations.
People say it's just marijuana, but the federal government still treats marijuana as an illegal drug.
I will take their product and I will take it to the dump and I will cite them into court.
After all of the men in my life betrayed me, beat me, left me penniless and homeless, my goal was to form a sisterhood of healers to heal the valley. Before long, I was surrounded by these incredible, like-minded women who believed in the healing powers of cannabis.
We've all been just thrown around by our families. The cannabis plant has all brought us together.
We are serious women on a serious mission.
We have nuns that are drug dealers.
Growing plants, it's dangerous in many ways, and I would always tell her, I don't want you to lose your life over this.
I was responsible for having the crop guarded. We were going to get a $250,000 crop.
You don't do your homework right, you'll get murdered.
2 bullets went under my bed.
I got somebody unloading.
Riddling our RV with bullets.
Boom, 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 boom.
They really intended to kill us. Plant-based medicine, Mother Earth. This is what we are about. This is our religion. Now I assume we are all under surveillance.
People have put their life savings into growing marijuana.
When they start getting into these multiple plants, the only reason they're doing it is because they're selling.
We're just going to grow it and take our chances.
We're going to lose this battle of drug addiction to Satan himself.
They're drug dealers and they're trying to say that it's medicine. No, they're lying. They want to get high.
Everyone needs to understand I will do whatever it takes to protect what I've built. People have everything taken away. You should be scared because they will do some radical shit. So, can you hear me? Everybody hear me? So thanks for coming. We're very honored that this many people, and as many people are here, there's like 3 or 4 for each of you that couldn't come but wrote us and reached out, and we're so happy that we were here in England and we've been treated really well, I have to say. We passed a vape pen at high tea today around the table. Do they know what that is? Do you know what a vape pen is? Okay. Anyway, we're very happy to be here. Before I start, I have to say something about the guns because I got tricked by Hollywood people. So when they came to do the filming, when they asked us to do the story, they came 3 or 4 times, and Claire was there, and they pulled up with all the guns in the back of a truck, and she had to, this is Sister Claire, she's from Canada, she's head of our Canadian order. Say hi, Sister Claire. Sister June, and she's our cook on the farm in California. And so anyway, Claire was there, and Claire's from Canada, they don't do guns. And she's like, no, we're not doing guns. And we don't really do guns. None of us are gun people, despite what you just saw. So when they came, they said, just please, can we get her to hold this gun and shoot this gun just for effect? It'll help us market. And they talked Claire into it. And then separately from the shot of me with the gun, they sent me to a studio to do a voiceover where I say, I will not let anyone get in the way of what we're trying to do. But when I'm saying it in the studio, I was actually thinking of running for sheriff, or running for mayor, or something like that. You know, something radical, a ballot initiative. I wasn't thinking about shooting anyone, and they took those words and put it with that image. And then everybody liked it, so we're like, oh well, you know? But just to give you some background on the story, when I wanted to grow CBD, in 2014, when I wanted to grow cannabis that I knew wouldn't get too high, and try to make a line of products that I could export, because where I live in the Central Valley is very, very poor. And how I ended up there is a long, sad story in a new book that we just released called The Accidental Nun. So I'm not going to get into it. You can get the book. But the fact of the matter is I end up in this really poor place after living in really awesome places like Amsterdam and like Chicago and, you know, other civilized places. So I end up in the Central Valley and it's dirt poor. And I had already been working for a couple of years delivering cannabis to sick patients and to dying patients. And the only way I could legally deliver cannabis in the Central Valley through doctors was by dealing with dying people and neurologically very disordered people. And that's when I came to be a nun, really. It was because I was delivering cannabis to the sick and dying, and I was delivering more than just cannabis. I was delivering cigarettes, and I was delivering their Thanksgiving dinner, because when you're dealing with dying patients, it becomes far more than just the cannabis that you're delivering. So I wanted to find a way to bring outside money from the rest of the world to the poor people of the Central Valley. And I knew in the Central Valley of California that 70 or 80 years ago, or 120 years ago, the Portuguese came, and the Dutch came, and the British came, and the farmers came, and they set up farms, and they set up the pomegranate. There was no almond industry 120 years ago. There was no pomegranate industry 120 years ago, or olive oil. They came, and they set up the farms there. And so and what they did is they now export like 80% of the world's almonds and stuff. So I was thinking, you know, I'm in farm town. I need to get the same thing happening with cannabis. I need to get the outside world spending their money to help this place. And even though I had run a collective, I never did it without the men. I never did it without the growers. So I didn't really know how to grow. So in order to get my first CBD crop, I basically had to make a deal with the black market growers, the guys who grow the THC. And they get $3,000 a pound at this time in 2014 for their nice bud and cured cannabis that's high in THC. They couldn't see any value in growing something that doesn't get you high. So, and I had a hell of a time convincing them to let me in this place, this abandoned place where they were going to put up 60 plants. And each of those 60 plants were going to get 5 to 6 pounds of cannabis. And so each of those plants is at a minimum of $10,000 or $12,000. So that was the plan. And here I am begging them to let me have 1/4 of the crop, 15 plants that are won't get anybody high, so that I could start my CBD line, so that I could export, so that I could start something. In order to get them to agree to it, I had to tell them that I would do security, and I convinced them I knew how to shoot a gun, even though I never owned a gun in my life, and had pretty much lobbied against guns my whole life. But I convinced them that I would be security, and that was the only way they would let me have 1/4 of the crop CBD. So I bought an RV for $4,000. I had to learn how to use the gun, and I talked to my son, who wasn't working, that if he would help me, guard the crop, I would buy him a car at the end of it. And anyway, so that's how I got there. I got there guarding a crop, and while I'm out there guarding the crop, we got shot at, because the tweakers from the mountains that come down to rob your cannabis, they don't know the difference between CBD. And even though I had big signs all around the crop saying that it was CBD and you won't get high from this, I'm not sure they could even read English. So I woke up one morning with bullet holes going through the RV, under the bed, and it came very near-death experience. And then instead of getting what should have been a $250,000 crop, we got a $60,000 crop, because we had to harvest it that day and get it out. And if anybody knows anything about growing, it's like taking your oranges out early or your almonds out early. It doesn't quite work. You don't get what you expect. So that's sort of the backstory in the film. Can you hear me if I don't use this? Yeah. Would it be better if I don't use this? I'm not, yes.
Is it possible to do anything about the big light that's shining?
It's like I can't see you.
It's just right by your head. It's quite blinding.
You have to wear sunglasses.
If you can't, don't worry.
I'm not used to speaking into a microphone, so I don't know if you're hearing me or not. Okay. Okay. So this film is going to be coming out sometime, I don't know, in different
420 in North America.
the magic date.
They've actually released that date.
The magic date. So I guess I'll start, unless you guys want to start somewhere else, the backstory of the sisterhood and why we look like this and why we do this and why we haven't been shot by the fundamental Christians. Start at that point. Sure. We're growing derivatives of Charlotte's Web, and we're not loyal to any particular one. We're not loyal to any particular strain. Yeah, I know. It's because we get what we get at the dispensaries when we go to get them. We usually buy the clones, and we go between the clones and our own seeds, but the clones are always a better... You know, it's changed. And the thing about being in the cannabis business, it's changing all the time. And in California, it's really changed. So I used to order my seeds from Attitude Seed Bank in London. That's how I started with my seeds. And yay, nice to know you. So, and if anybody's ever ordered from them, you know you're not really ordering seeds, you're ordering a hemp purse or a t-shirt, and then the seeds are free with it because that's how they get to be able to do credit card billing and shipping around the world. That's the dance that the industry plays. But now we have places like Harborside where we can go in and get trays of clones in one day that are healthy little baby clones, and so we grow from those. But so that's why I say we're not particular about strain. What we care about is percentage CBD. All we care about is it going to be 10% CBD, and is it going to be around 1% THC? And if we have that now, by the time you take that 1% THC and you turn it into something, an oil or a tincture, if you're smart about it, you get that down to 0.3% THC, and now you have something that's called hemp and legal to ship around the world. If anybody wonders what the difference between hemp and cannabis is, there is no difference. They're both the genus name for the plant species. Hemp, if you look up cannabis in a dictionary, it says hemp, first definition. If you look up hemp, it says cannabis, first definition. But the laws have done things which leave it to, you know, humankind to just mess things up. So they've made it more complicated than it really is. But it's in fact what the UN has said and what Europe has said and now what the US has said, that is, if it's under 0.3% or less, means it's hemp. So that's all you have to care about now. You have a product that should be legal. I say should be legal because the whole world's not necessarily down with that. And if I had to start over and do one thing differently, I would not have put a purple pot leaf on our products that are shipping around the world. It's a bit of a flag to customs and security, and they like to, you know, interfere. So, shall I move on? So the founding of the sisterhood. So I was, can we do something about this light because people are having to put sun hats on.
I can't even see you. She's beautiful.
What if I stand down here? It's not much better. What? Hello, who works here? Help us. We're stuck. What do you think they're used to using those lights for? Surely band members don't play with that glaring in their eyes today. Yeah. Like she's just saying, like okay, that's okay. I think that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi. So I had a bit of a tragedy happen to me, as has happened to far more people than it should happen to. It's sort of a falling out with my brother resulted in me becoming homeless, him changing the lock. 30 seconds on the ex-husband who stole my fortune. Okay, so she's like, your first tragedy. That was the husband stealing fortune. I don't think this is working. Okay, so I had that happen. So I'm going to try to do without it, I think.
So I had been a pretty successful consultant. I had done assignments in London. I had smoked fine weed at Gatwick and many places in England. Actually, Sister Claire and I met in Amsterdam when I was working on an assignment to her when she was working on a big assignment for an international bank. So I had pretty good business, and over the course of my consulting firm, I had managed to bank over $1 million, and the ex-husband took every cent of it and left me with the 3 middle schoolers to like tough it out on my own. So that was my first sort of big train wreck in my life. And then I had a following train wreck like 6 years later when my brother, we had a cannabis business going. We were delivering, as a medical cannabis operation, we were growing it in our backyard, family operation, delivering it to the sick and dying. And like many business partners, he wasn't getting rich fast enough. And so he sort of turned on me, and I ended up homeless. And through this whole thing, the trouble with my ex and the trouble with my brother, there was absolutely not one social agency in America that would help me, no matter the fact that I had paid in taxes my whole life. There was not anywhere to go for help. You guys are actually probably in a better position. I'm quite sure you are, because everybody in America right now is wishing we wouldn't have dumped that tea. Have health care. But it was really bad. And I didn't know it because I had lived pretty affluently abroad for 8 years or 10 years before I came back to America, and then went through this divorce, and then went through this tragedy with my brother, and all the time looking for help because what the heck, and there's no help anywhere. And that made an activist out of me. That made me turned me into an angry activist. So I'm both of those things made me realize how deficient our societies are, not just in America, but in many other places. And I became an activist with the Occupy movement. And it was as an activist with the Occupy movement that I thought I had like my 15 minutes of fame. What happened was Michelle Obama tried to talk to Congress in 2011 about how unhealthy our children's meals are. Congress filibustered and a week later declared pizza vegetable. I'm sure you heard about this. Declared pizza vegetable so our children's meals looked healthier than they actually were. And when Congress declared pizza vegetable, I declared myself a nut. You have to understand, at the time, I was taking care of 6 children from the ages of 14 to 20, because my brother had, when we had moved in together, it was his and mine, and a heroin addict nephew we took, and successfully used cannabis to get him clean from his heroin addiction. So we had a rather large family. I was growing vegetables out of the garden. I was learning how to cook for a family of 6 with plants out of our garden. This is all strange to me as a city girl. And delivering cannabis to people. And it was in those years as an activist, so I go down to the Occupy movement in my black and white garb, and they dubbed me Sister Occupy, and I thought I got like my 15 minutes of fame. I wrote a couple articles about the protests we went to, and they were all published. But while I was out, I started talking to people everywhere about, I was so disgusted that the Catholic Church, I was watching things happen, like we have a homeless camp over here, they don't like the homeless over here, the homeless have to get moved over here. I would go to these things where people were being made homeless, or where they were the homeless would have to move, and I couldn't understand, where are the clergy? Where are the clergy? Why aren't they at the protests? And why aren't they helping our people who are homeless? Because that has been a role that the clergy has played in our society for thousands of years. What happened? Where are they? So I go, as a good analyst, which was my former career, I go looking for where are the sisters. And I find out that in America, although there were 350,000 Catholic nuns when I was growing up, at this point, when I'm looking in 2011, there were less than 40,000. alive, that the average age of a Catholic nun in 2011 is 78 years old. So what I discovered is they're going extinct. Where are the priests? Go looking for where the priests are, and well, guess what? They're in so much trouble from their pedophile suits that they're not allowed to play with the public. They can't even do it because the lawyers are making the shots and calling the shots for them. I'm in California, a fairly liberal place, while I'm going to protest after protest, shutting down the ports, protesting tuition hikes, and it's getting me into a lot of conversations with people who are saying to me, sister, you know, who are you? Always the first question is, you know, are you Catholic? And so we've learned to say that ahead of time. We're not affiliated with the Catholic Church. And then, okay, can I join you? That was honestly the next answer. As long as I wasn't Catholic, people were interested in joining, which was very interesting. And so that was a mind boggler to me, because I'm like, no, you don't get it. There's nothing to join. This is a protest statement. This is a protest. I'm protesting. I'm Sister Occupied. There's nothing to join. But that got a 4-year conversation going from the north of California to the south of California at a number of universities, and as what would a New Age religion look like? What if we had a new group of sisters? What would it look like? What would their prayer services be? How would they work? What would that be? So at one point I even did a more sort of at the end of this, I did a more organized approach. I chose 3 universities. I happened to have 3 kids in university, so I asked each of them to get me together a group of young women that I could speak to about being sisters, being weed nuns basically, as the idea started to form. So I went to UC Davis and I talked to a group of engineering girls. And even though they were engineering girls, they were kind of intrigued with the concept of a Build-A-Bear religion, where like you start over. You don't affiliate yourself with anything that's been out there. And you start over, what does that look like? And then I went to UCLA and I talked to a group of psychology majors there. And in every case, the girls were fascinated, interested, and their answer was yes. I would dress like that. I would bring my best spiritual self. I would bring my best activist self to my work if I had a decent minimum wage, upward mobility, a career path, was treated with respect, had decent vacation, had the things basically that the middle class had in the 50s in America. They would do that for it. One particular, when I went to Fresno State though, my other son, my middle son, arranged for me to meet with a group of girls who were pole dancing their way through university, stripping in towns outside of Fresno to pay their tuition for college. So although the girls at UCLA, when I said, could you be this, after I explained it, at UC Davis they said yes, and at UCLA they said yes, and at Fresno they said, fuck yeah. That was the stripper pole girl. I'm just saying. So that started, it started like what was seriously a 4-year conversation. In that process, my brother got very angry at me. He wasn't just angry because I wasn't getting rich enough. He was angry because I was Sister Occupy and he was a Catholic boy, and what the fuck? So in a way, you can't blame him. It might have just been too much for him. But the way he expelled me violently and kept all my things, and the way the family stood behind him on that was very traumatic for me. But it also, the trauma of that also made me say, F you, I'm doing this. Because I had a big family of very serious Catholics, and they were tied up angry about the same thing. And here I am thinking, so basically what happened is the trauma to me gave me the courage to say, okay, my family's not talking to me anyway. Let's see how big I can do this. And so that's basically was the impetus to set out and start something. I began, like I said, doing a deal with the sort of the black market growers, the traditional growers in THC. I got my first crop. I started making tinctures and those salves basically by going on YouTube and listening to doctors talk about salves and what they put in. And I listened to 5 doctors and wrote down what everybody used and the same ingredients that they all used. And the ones that overlapped that sounded good, I took that and I added cannabis to it, the little bit that I had from the crop that got prematurely ripped out of the ground. And I was off to the races. So that was sort of the beginning. Do you guys have any questions on that? Oh, yeah, okay, so the actual idea, so anyway, as an activist, I go down to Fresno to a picnic. I get invited to a picnic. That is a really sad kind of thing. Once a year at a very big park in Fresno, they have artists from Fresno do renderings of all the people who died homeless in Fresno that year. So anybody who died on the streets. And then in the summer, there's like a potluck dinner at this park, and artists come and musicians come, and these people are remembered and honored. And the street people come, of course, and people bring food. And I think it's kind of sad that something like that even exists, but it really does exist, and we were invited to go down there. And when my sidekick, Sheila, she would come, my first sister, second sister was Sheila, and she would sometimes show up in a nun uniform, sometimes a burqa, sometimes a wife beater with all her tattoos hanging out. So I could never really know. I had to be very flexible on that end. So we go down to this, and we meet, the Native Americans are doing a healing drumming circle at this ceremony, and we're fascinated with the medicine that they create with their drums and with their music. And they also feel that this is a great, great tragedy, that in their ancient cultures, this would not have happened, that people just died. One of the men that we honored that night had died 6 feet from the entrance to a hospital on the cement. So I made friends with the Yaqui native. So I get back to my town, and he calls me within a couple days and says, "Sister, I have a Down syndrome daughter, and every year we take this retreat where 60 tribes from Alaska to Mexico meet on this mountaintop. And my daughter is now 20, and she's such a pain in the ass, and I've worn out all the good graces of all the women of the tribe, and I have official tribal business to do when I'm up there. So I was wondering if you sisters would be willing to come as my guest and just sort of escort and oversee my daughter and keep her out of trouble." And I said, "I'm sorry, sir, you don't understand. We're not that kind of nun." I said, "We're not Catholic." I think what I said was, "You don't understand. We're not Catholic nuns." And he said, "No, you don't understand. I don't give a shit what kind of nun you are." So that was the beginning of me realizing that really no one does give a shit. I mean, in the earlier days, the Occupy movement, they were so freaked out about me coming in nun garb. They were so sure I was going to get arrested that they made me get a minister's license online. And I'm like, I don't want to be a minister. I want to be a nun. And they're like, there is no online nun certificate for $20. And I'm like, well, there should be, because I don't want to be a minister. But anyway, they made me do that because they were worried about me being arrested. So I went up on this holy mountain, Tule River Reservation. And before I could go on the mountain, I had to go into Fresno and spend a night with some of the elders of the Yaqui tribe, understanding what their ancient rituals are, because when they go up to this mountain every year, to the mountaintop, they practice their ancient rituals. And those include things like, I can't just randomly talk to a man of another tribe unless an elder male in my tribe has introduced me to that tribe. They're going back to like the period of the year 800 to 1200 or 1400, what their ancient ancestors would have practiced. We had to understand that, so when we got up there, we wouldn't offend anybody. So we go up there, and I get a chance to talk, and one by one, he knew what I cared about. I cared about ancient medicine and ancient healing, and one by one, he took me and introduced me to the Native American women that held all the knowledge of the healing. And these women were like 110 years old. So I'm asking them what they're doing to transfer this knowledge to the young ladies. And they're saying, no, they're not going to transfer it. It's going to go to their grave. And it's because the young ladies don't follow the red road. So they're not living a life that's pure Injun, as they like to call it. They're not being true to their ancestral ways. As an analyst, I thought that was insane. And I did actually have a debate with them about it. I'm like, wow, how old are you? She's Margaret. She's 92 years old. Okay, Margaret, you're 92 years old, and you're judging the morality of young women, and your culture, and when you're raised, is so dramatically different than the culture that they're raised in that I think that's insane. And I think you should let let me develop a pink road. And they all thought that was hilarious. And they said, you go for it, you develop a pink road. So I got their blessing to basically take whatever knowledge they had to give me up there on that mountaintop that weekend, and the rituals and the services, and incorporate that into our medicine. The natives, I kind of spooked them, because they believed that the return to old ways will be led by the white woman, and that's a prophecy that has been passed down for a very long time, for hundreds of years. And so they sort of thought that I might be the one. And they gave me a tremendous amount of support getting started. And they're still very good friends, and they still come to the farm and hang with us. And I did manage his daughter, the 20-year-old Down syndrome daughter, convinced me of so much stuff that I got into trouble that weekend. Like it was fine to wash our hair in the Holy Creek. and other things she did. But they were all so kind to me, and they continue to be. So, okay, so the influence that had, so while I'm doing the Occupy thing, and I'm out there talking to people, and while I'm developing a relationship with the natives of the Central California, that were, many of whom were very, very, not only were their ancestors wiped out because Christianity's Inquisition sort of thing came in and took over the best land on the coast for the priests and for their convents. But, you know, I met Native American woman who's 70-some years old, who told me that when she was 3 years old, a nun would come to her and take her to a priest to be abused from the playground. So I mean, it's still fresh and alive, the atrocities to a lot of these people, especially older people. David the Elder was ripped. It was him and eight sisters, and they lived in a tent, and they were ripped out of their tent. And they were put into separate homes. And to this day, he can't sleep in a bed with sheets because he was beaten to be made to sleep in a bed with sheets. And they hadn't slept that way. They slept in skins gathered on the floor. So the influence of the natives was powerful to me, because I started to say, if we had a new age sort of religion, what would it look like? Well, what about turning back the clock to before it became illegal to have Mother Earth in your spiritual practices? Because the problem right now on the planet is we're trashing the planet. And even though lots of other countries like Canada, and especially here in Europe, we can notice it traveling, are taking all kinds of great measures to reduce the amount of plastic. Whatever you're doing, we're doing 10 times more damage U.S. side. So especially in our culture, there's a need to have Mother Earth return to the middle of our spiritual practices. And this whole thing with everybody getting tattoos, I see actually as an outcome of the need for people to return to their ancient practices, to get in touch with their ancient practices. So through working with the natives, through working with the hippies, through working with the stoners, and through working with the college students in California, we kind of got a framework of how our spiritual beliefs would work. And that framework was that we would have spiritual ceremonies and gatherings every new moon and every full moon. And the way we do it on the farm is new moons are for the women and full moons are for the tribe. That means it's totally the women's discretion on a new moon, or whether they actually go out and have a fire ceremony and pray, or if we just pop a bottle of wine and do tarot card readings. It's totally our call for the new moon. But what does happen every new moon is we have a vegan dinner, because our practice, and we don't like this any more than you do, our practice is to find a way that we can return to more plant-based diets and do it in a sort of loving, gentle way. We make our medicines like we believe our ancestors would make our medicines by moon cycle. So we put up a batch on a new moon, and we complete a batch on a full moon. My original vision for the sisterhood would be that the minute we put up a batch on a new moon, we do no harm. Not only do we do no eating of meat, there's no kill on our plate, but also we burn no fossil fuels, that we are there, and that we use no plastic, and that we reduce our footprint. That's sort of a dream, but we've started it, and this is a work in process, and this is going to be the sisterhood, and the growth of the sisterhood is going to be an unfolding drama that goes on for the next 20, 30 years on this planet, is my belief, if we do it right. If we do it right, it's going to evolve, and it's not going to be all my vision, it's going to be other people's vision as well on how this evolves. But what we're aiming for, so I'll go back to the medicine. So our practices, we have a new moon ceremony, we start a new batch. We do no harm, we turn vegan, or at least plant-based. Even our definition of vegan is really stretching. And if you want, we failed at being vegan for 3 years. And we had every Nazi vegan come to our farm and try to help us. And it was a disaster every time, was it not? I mean, it was so bad that we were burning extra fuel when we run into each other at Wendy's getting a burger. There would be 3 sisters and 3 cars, and it's like, okay, this is stupid. We have to do something else. So when we failed at being true vegans, we said, let's just say we're going to put meat out of our diet from new moon to full moon. And that's really what we're doing. On a full moon, then, we have a feast, and we have meat, and it's for the tribe. So instead of celebrating every birthday and every anniversary and everything that comes in between, those things are celebrated on a full moon because we think that's what our ancestors would have done. We don't think they would have run to Hallmark for every birthday and every anniversary. We don't think they would have fed the capitalist machine for every birthday. Instead, those incidences and those events, those people would be recognized at the ceremony. So the first year that we were actually doing the practices as a tribe, for example, all the children got money trees, right? This year they're getting real trees. We had to roll them into it. They're little capitalists. So we had to walk them over to the green. So our practices, essentially what I did is I learned about the beguines. Do any of you know what the beguines are? Okay, I didn't either. So apparently, in the Middle Ages, in Europe and here, every castle of Europe had a Beguine enclave. It's spelled B-E-G-U-I-N-E. And we think they originated in Belgium. They were the precursors to the Catholic nuns. They were women-run enclaves. Women who were spiritual women who lived together, worked together, prayed together, but they believed in private housing. They believed in women owning property and owning businesses. They had one foot on the grid, one foot off the grid. They had their farming, but they also had an apartment and a store in the castle. And people came from far and wide to get their products because they were known for their excellence. They grew hemp, they made textiles, they made holistic medicines. The reason why we identify with them is because we know that those ancient mothers had to stand back while they had medicine in their medicine bag that would cure the king's son of his epilepsy. And yet, they had to stand back and let the pasty white old men come through with their leeches and suck the blood out of the son, thinking that does something. And we feel we're very much the same in that position today. We have to stand back and watch the doctors put chemo in people and make them sick when we have in our basket stuff that will heal them. So in studying in understanding who the beguines were and then studying them, we looked at the top 12 beliefs of our Beguine ancestors we just picked a year. Since the Gutenberg press came out in 880, and the only book that was allowed to be printed was the Bible, because Gutenberg was a good Christian, and that's to us sparked many, many other dominoes that resulted in wiping out all spiritual practices that had Mother Earth at the center of them. So we look back, also the first Catholic nun, Saint Scholastica, did her thing in about 880. So we look to right before that, because right before that, people were still free in most places. Right before the Inquisition, people were free in most places to still practice their spirituality the way they wanted to practice their spirituality. So in looking at the top 12 beliefs of the Beguines from the year 800 in Europe, and looking at the top 12 beliefs of the ancient Aztecs of the land of California, where those 8 beliefs overlapped, we said, okay, we'll take those as ours. And I'm only going to tell you the first 3 because I don't memorize all of them. I just say I'll email you if you want to have them. Top one is we organize our life by the cycles of the moon and the quarters of the year. That's our number 1 thing. So that immediately puts Mother Earth at the center of what's going on. Our number 2 is to be compassionate to people on the planet. Again, we've got Mother Earth back in the formula at number 2. And then we demoted Creator God to 3rd place because people will step over the sick and dying to worship His name, and that wasn't the intention. Our 3rd belief is that, and you don't even have to believe in God, that there is a mystical other side that we don't understand. That's our belief. and that many believe that that's our Creator God on that side, but that there's a veil between us and that, and we aren't really meant to understand that on this lifetime. And then we go on to such things like it's against our beliefs to push our beliefs onto anybody else or try to convert anyone. It's against our beliefs to put down anybody else's spiritual beliefs unless they're victimizing someone. Then we have an obligation to. So that was the beginning of our beliefs. That's how our beliefs are organized. That's how we're organized right now on the fund. And Brother Matt came out to California and witnessed us in all our crazy glory. Any questions on that?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
First, thank you. It's amazing what you say. I've just finished a school for herbalists, so I wait to know if I'm going to be graduated or not. Do you need little Santa helpers? Do you need like a woman who can come and you can teach them, train them? Because your message is really deep, it's clear in the future. But it's as well a woman, or as you say, young woman, who want to learn that but are lost. So do you train, or do you take a young woman or even men to train?
Yeah, we got our first sister of Sweden and our first sister of New Zealand. And I always like to say our first sister of the UK is actually a brother, but he's very in touch with his family. And yes, we wouldn't have them if they wouldn't have been bold enough to say, I want to come to your farm, I want to work with you. We have a lot we still have to figure out. This is a work in process. We want to grow, I want to grow very quickly, and I tell the media all the time, we want to have weed nuns and brothers in every province and every town on the planet in the next 20 years. How we're going to get there, I'm not sure, but I never knew how I was going to get here. I just had a vision, and then I just followed it, and here I am. But yes, that is the intention. We attract herbalists, we attract healers, we attract right people, and we attract smart people who are tired of doing work that doesn't do anything for their soul. And this is work that will heal you as you do it because you're healing other people, and it's kind of a boomerang effect. They call it the entourage effect, I guess. Yes.
So
yes.
what I propose you is your first French sister.
Pardon?
What I propose you is your first French sister.
Oh, we don't
I'm
have
not
a
English,
French,
so
would you like
it's going to
hear
be a
the
very
French?
first one.
Oh, yes. Are you proposing? I'm sorry. I can't even see who I'm talking about.
It's okay.
Where is she?
I'm here.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at her thinking she's got the microphone. I do that on purpose because if I public speak and I can see you, I will never finish a sentence. I'll just start looking at people. So I take it off, they all become blurry. And I put my thoughts on what I'm doing. So I'm sorry. Stand up.
Hello, here.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Yes.
So my boyfriend is in the room, and maybe you will discover maybe becoming. No, I'm kidding. But good news. No, but definitely something. It's a clear mission, and I think a lot of people have the calling right now. So yeah, in many ways, I can be in touch and help. I will be really happy.
Right. I tell everybody that if it was all about just bringing you to the Central Valley of California, yeah, no one would want to come. We want the sisters to think and brothers to think about establishing their orders in their own country. Here's the thing. We want to cut the travel distance between where the medicine is made and who consumes it. We believe that local cannabis is like local honey. That's best. And that the products that you're consuming right now here in England should be grown at the hands of the men and the soil of the women. And then the medicine made by the hands of the women, and never cross customs and never give them the chance. So just for reducing the footprint of the medicine and the carbon burned to get it to everybody, we have to start reducing. And so there will always be room for more sisters and more enclaves besides the first one in France. And there will always be room for more than our first brother. But somebody has to be bold enough to do that first. And then they have a loud voice in how that grows in their country. And yes, we would like to get your information and talk about France, of course.
Yeah, no, I live here now.
Okay.
And I plan to stay here for
maybe
the rest of my life. Hello. But I've been traveling and I love it. But yeah, I'm looking potentially with my partner to start a holistic business because I've just finished the school. And it's so many things I have to learn. I would say the more I learn about herbs and more I understand, it's something behind really, really big. And it's even so big, sometimes my brain just melts in front of that. But it takes time, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely something to do here, and I would love to be part of it.
We don't have all the details worked out, obviously, but there's some things we do know. And I always say it this way. With the amount of information that's available to people today, I can watch a Netflix program on melting ice caps one night and convince you the next morning I'm Al Gore. That's how the universe is. And people are so full of shit now because they will just talk about things as if they're an expert and they don't know anything. So to cure that and to not to have faith in resumes and lies or bullshit, all we know right now is a sister or a brother becomes a sister or brother through working with us. There has to be a working relationship. We have a theory that if you're working side by side with somebody, they cannot hide they're crazy for more than 5 days. And it is real. We are living in the dark night of the globe. Whether we like it or not, we're living in the dark night of the globe. This is really the heart of where the sisters are. We're living in the dark night of the globe. There's an excellent book I recommend you reading called Savage Grace. And in that book, they talk about the fact that we've got 60 species going extinct a day. And we don't get to sit around and hold hands and sing Kumbaya anymore. Our time's up. We have to get radical. And we all have to get in touch with our radical activists. And something else, we have to build a tribe that we can rely on. We have to build a group of people that have mature IQs and will have each other's shadow back. What does that mean? It means that if the shadow side of my character, the good side is I'm very bold and I'm very creative and I'm unafraid to do anything. The bad side is I'm a crazy bitch sometimes. That's my shadow side. I have to be with women who recognize my shadow side, and I have to be willing to recognize their shadow side. Because what we're really doing is creating an ancient but new age way of surviving what we have coming at us in the future. And we're all very scattered and we're all very shook because there's like a civil war of the souls going on in the planet. Most people are so nervous and upset and they have no idea why they're nervous and upset. But it's because the energy on the planet. Things are speeding up. Things are happening at an incredibly fast rate. Families are bursting apart. We have opioid epidemics. We have fracking, a legal thing that they're throwing poisons into our ground and poisoning our water. It's an insane place. But if you read this book, Savage Grace, what it is filled with is tips for survival, for coming out of this on the other side. So at the base of all of this, what I think from my heart is what I'm trying to do is create something that lasts and that becomes our more and our guiding light, has our traditions, our more, our guiding light, that feeds our souls and keeps us sustained as we navigate through the shit we have to navigate through to save this planet. I think you're all here because you get that. You get that and you care about it as well. Cannabis, I believe, is what we need. That is the starting point to saving the planet and the people. Cannabis is. Here's what. We are shocked with the results we got. Just shocked. I mean, to me, I am deregulating businesses. I was an analyst. I was there when telecom deregulated. I was there when cable deregulated. I was there when energy deregulated. I made a lot of money for a lot of people. Cannabis, to me, I saw cannabis originally as just a way that even if I was mediocre at it or bad at it, it's a coming industry and it would allow the sisters to have an income so we would not have to beg people for money. Does anybody like to beg people for money? No. Working in a call center is basically begging people for money. There's a lot of it going on. In California, people put on ridiculous costumes to be signs, living signs, a big banana, hot banana, standing outside waving you into the IRS tax place or waving you into this. Society is so messed up, it's doing some crazy things. So we have this civil war going on where, and it's breaking up families, and it should be breaking up families. We need to quit beating ourselves up about broken families because what happens in the South with slavery? We had families that broke up because half the family thought slavery was cool and half the family thought it was appalling. What we have going on now is we've got half the populations, and I don't know these numbers exactly, I'm just painting a picture, half are wanting to go backwards. They want to go backwards. It's not natural to go backwards. It's not natural that our children don't have a better life than we do. We're doing some unnatural stuff. So we've got half of the global population that says, yeah, I like it the way it was in 1950. And half of the global population says, no, that's not good enough. We have to do better. No starving children. No, we got to quit worrying about the invisible babies and where they go and start worrying about the babies in their own hometowns. They're going to bed starving or abused at night. So because we've got this, there's no agreement. You're for slavery or you're not. You're for a new and better paradigm or you're not. You're with the other guys. And this is pulling families apart. And the cannabis, to me, is a savior. Not only is it like the guy, it's not the only herb that can heal us. It's just a powerful, cooperative, healing herb. And it is like the guiding light that I think will lead people back to using turmeric and ginger and other holistic ways instead of relying on the doctors and the pills. But more importantly, hemp. Hemp is going to save the planet. So the putting a Sisters of the Valley salve making center here is only like this much of what we need to do. We need to replace all our Ziploc and all our Tupperware and we have lots of plastics that have to be replaced by hemp. And we think that the Sisters of the Valley should dominate that industry. Dominated not because we are capitalists that want to own anything, but that we think it should be a movement. It should be a movement that is a Build-A-Bear religion and spirituality, that it might look a little different in different places. The uniforms might be a little different. The Beguines of the ancient times, every enclave dressed a little differently. I expect that her sister of Brazil, if she looks at what her ancient mothers wore in the 800s, it probably didn't look like this. It probably was more of a wrap. So there will be changes, but the basic idea that we all have this in common, that we all believe in cannabis and plant-based medicine, that we all believe, just like the Catholics have their fundamental belief. I was 18 years old when I went to a priest and I said, you know, I've been in Catholic school my whole life and I really think this is bullshit. And you know what he said? Well, you're okay if you just are okay with the top 3 beliefs. So if they can do it, I can do it. So the top 3 beliefs are cannabis will kill people and hemp will be the planet, heal the planet. And we need to go back to the spiritual practices and the tribal practices to before some group of white men in Italy decided that we were all going to be Catholic. Those are the top 3 beliefs. So what else?
Okay, so I got involved with Sisters of the Valley in 2016 after discovering them on my Facebook feed. I was just curious. I'd always been a cannabis smoker, a closet cannabis smoker, because we know the stigma that is attached to the plant, the fact that you couldn't hold down a job, that it's a gateway to other drugs. I just like to split. And I bought the balm, and the balm helped with psoriasis, helped with headaches. And then I started talking with Sister Kate, just a communication went on. And at the time I was working for a Christian organisation, a great job that I absolutely loved, working really, really hard, and I was doing really great things. But I was being bullied in the workplace. And then Sister Kate said, you know what, encouraged to go to California, went to California, spent time with the sisters, and then come back and decided this is what I wanted to do. And at the moment, we just can't import the product fast enough. We're sorry that you having to wait for stock, but it is coming through. We've had lots of teething problems with customs, but now we've got, they understand that our product is lab tested, it's all safe and legal. We work with the Cannabis Trade Association. I know a lot of people don't like them, but we've been advised by MHRA that we need to follow their guidelines, so that's why we work with the Cannabis Trade Association. So the plans are to, hopefully we will grow the business in Europe. We're looking at developing production in Portugal, which will also help bring the cost of the product down, because at the moment we are hit by the tariffs that the EU have put on the US in retaliation for the tariffs that have been put on steel. So we have to pay 25% import duty on the bonds, and we also have to pay 20% VAT. So before we've actually even brought that into the country, we've paid 45%. So hopefully when we're making the product over this side of the pond, we'll be able to reduce the cost of our product.
We've recognized for quite some time that we don't want to be shipping really from a Trump nation. We want to ship from a Trudeau nation. So Sister Claire can talk a little bit about what she's got going on in Canada that will also help you.
So some of you might know that October 17th, 2018 is a huge deal for Canada as the first G7 country to legalize or to go recreational. And I think the way that was done was beneficial to many in the sense that it was approved federally first. So our Prime Minister, when he was on the election campaign, that was definitely part of his platform, and he went through various hearings through the Senate, what have you. So October 17th, basically, recreational cannabis is now legal. So as a result of that, we've had medical for quite a number of years, but the good news about doing it the way Canada's done it is by approving it federally, Health Canada, as our governing body, oversees a lot of the practices and standards. And so what that means is that Health Canada has a approval process for licensed producers that are allowed to make the medicine, et cetera, et cetera. And we've been very fortunate. We've been approached by a number of licensed producers that would like to work with us in Canada. And so we're in very serious discussions. And that means that we're able to make the medicine in a very large scale. The ones that we're working most closely with are ones that are very keen on the Sisters of the Valley approach. They've spent a lot of time getting to know the Sisters of the Valley, and they really buy into the spiritual way that the product is made, and they want the sisters on site doing all the blessings. And so it's a great fit so far. We hope to see this deal through. When I get back to Canada, we're having more discussions. But the great thing about that is that by doing it this way, we work with Health Canada to get all those proper standards in place. Canada may also look to the export market, but it does open up the whole country to us as of October 17th. Our partnership won't be in place quite by that time, but hopefully soon after. So it's really an exciting time for us, and it really contrasts with what's happening in the States, where the approvals are coming through on a state-by-state basis. And the reason that matters is that by approving it federally, it means that our banking industry can work with us without fear of losing their banking licenses. Some of you might know that banking licenses are typically a federal thing, and in the States, for example, it's still a very cash business, because as much as the states themselves are approving it, to the extent that Trump is not at the federal level, the banks are fearful of losing their banking licenses. So it puts these businesses very much at risk. It puts the people very much at risk. And forces a lot of the industry to stay in the cash market. By comparison, in Canada, by approving it first federally, and then allowing the provinces and the municipalities to decide on the retail market, it means that our banks are basically protected to play a role in this space. And so it means that we can do for payment processing, et cetera, we have a little bit easier of a time sorting that out without fear of the banks being fearful of losing their licenses. So it's really exciting times in Canada, and we see other countries eventually doing much the same.
We actually had to launch a UK company to take credit card. And so we're the sole business in the US that's been taking credit card for a long time. We have to do a lot of dances to keep that. If one picture of one pot plant lands on our store, MasterCard, Visa, and American Express are on the phone with us in an hour. If we take down the thing that says you have to be over 18. So that they'll call us in an hour. That you have to be over 18 to purchase. Children can't, which we think is ridiculous because we're dealing with parents of children who are now 100 seizures a day and now a year seizure free, and that child who's 12 years old is not legally allowed to buy our medicine. Yes.
You often have these statements saying not yet known as that streets or diagnosed any condition as well.
Yes, we can't make any claims.
You take that off.
Yes, we can't make any claims. My original bottles and labels said made with healing intent, apply with healing intent.
Yeah.
Why? Because the kids at the universities are saying that the scientists are proving that the energy that you make the medicine with travels with the medicine, which is largely why we do it our way. The ancients believed it, and now the scientists are proving that that's actually true. I was operating for about a year, and the post office held up 120 orders. And I got in the phone with the post office general, and we had an hour-long conversation. Somewhere in there, I accused him of being the biggest drug dealer on the planet because of the number of pills they ship every day. And he, in the end, agreed not to bother me and make sure his post offices don't bother me if I agreed to have my labels scrubbed by a label scrubbing lawyer firm. And I was brand new. I said, the sisters can't afford that this year, but we'll take it under consideration for next year. And we did. And one of the reasons why this relationship with Brother Matt is so important, other than calling you all together, which this is magnificent. We've never done anything like this. I feel like I'm doing a town hall the Republicans aren't doing, that they should be doing back in America. But this is real, but part of why the relationship, we choose the relationships we have. I'm happy to have the women move along. Thank you. It is amazing though, because we had to suffer quite a bit of humiliation. Just 8 months ago, or 6 months ago, as activists, the sisters, gown up and go to every meeting within an hour on the subject of cannabis. And we went down to a meeting in the town of Merced, our town. And when we walked into the meeting, and the fattest one said, "Oh, great, now it's going to stink in here." And they all three got up, and he said it really loud because the weed nuns were there. Maximum insult. I have been insulted in every possible way. If you go through, I've been talking to the city councils. Just recently, Brother Dwight took me to a meeting in Atwater, and they told him afterwards, if you ever show up with a weed nun again, you'll never get a real estate license in this town. So it went from that to, we put in, about 9 months ago, we signed up for the Merced Chamber of Commerce. We're activists. We're not real thrilled with any of the Chamber of Commerce. They kind of make the messes that we have in all of our towns and make the class system. But we have to do things we have to do. So when we signed up for the Chamber of Commerce, we went for their maximum package, $900 membership. Why? Because they had to come to our farm and do a ribbon cutting there. So to force them to come in the newspaper to our farm. For 9 months, they didn't know what to do with it. They sat on our money, and for 9 months, and when it got 3 months to renewal, well, we got to pay it again, and we never got the first visit to our farm. I called them and said, look, you're going to miss your chance. We're going to have a sunrise service on the farm on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And they said, they conferred and came back and said, we can't do 6 o'clock, but we'll be there at 8. And I'm like, huh, you're coming. And then they took pictures and did the ribbon cutting in front of the pot plants, which ended up getting the Chamber of Commerce and the ribbons and the officials from the town on the front page of the newspaper with our pot plants. And then that caused a ripple effect that once they came, other towns around us, officials started calling and taking selfies with our pot plants. So now I'm like, this is no fun anymore. We're going to have to do cocaine or something. That's, we're very glad. Yes. Are there more questions? Any questions? Is there anything else you want me to address that I haven't addressed?
When you're saying that you're getting regulated, effectively, will that not give the banks some sort of leeway to tell you how much you sell it for?
No, I don't see in America the banks regulating. Maybe in Europe they will. I mean, they do that with your medicine, but in a way it's worked out for your folks because whatever medicine I bought in the Netherlands or England was.
Right. You're kind of right. You're onto something. In the sense that one of the objectives in improving it federally in Canada, so it's only happening federally in Canada, is to actually displace the black market. And so to try and take the danger sign away, what have you. So in order to do that, not only do they have to regulate it, but you have to ensure that the price is low enough to be competitive. So you are onto something in the sense that yes, the government then is putting pressure on all the licensed producers in order to bring those prices down. So you're 100% right.
But that is exactly the reason why I want to grow it locally too. I don't think, it should be more affordable. Our prices are obscene in my own opinion, but you don't lower your prices when you can't keep the medicine on the cabinet. Yes,
Is this your first tour of the UK?
this is our first time ever stepping out of North America. But we didn't do a public speaking in France, we went for the film. We went to France